Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 2018 Guides to Onigiri. That introduction is going to take a little bit of work, but bear with me, it's going to get a bit better. So, last time, the game unfortunately crashed on us while we were talking about damage. So, what that was, just to mention that, is that this game is a very laggy game. It's really fun, but it does have server and lag issues. So generally, your experience in the game is going to be interrupted generally every hour on average. So if you run a lot of stuff or you do a lot of inventory management or change your equipment a lot or just be in laggy areas with people with mounts out and using attacks and all that stuff, you're gonna have a bad time. The game can crash. So in my experience, if you're gonna run anything big or important, it's always good to just reset your game to that nice clean slate before you do such a big venture. Just a little pro tip from way long ago that has helped me throughout the years and is still a great, great thing to do. Sort of like looking both ways before you cross the street. So on to today's topic, or well, not really today, but this video's topic. So what we're talking about is damage in general. So that was the last thing we touched on at the end of the part 1 of the guide, and I feel like that topic alone, I could talk about it for 20 minutes. So we're going to get into that. You sure can, Thunder. You sure can. So damage is controlled and calculated by what I like to call the Triforce of damage. You can call it the Trinity of damage, whatever you want to call it. But there are 3 major factors which is going to determine how much damage you deal. So, for example, the perfect example of how damage works is on the 105 mags I touched on earlier. So the 105 mags, if you break down these mags, there's a reason they're the meta, and it's because they touch on every part of the Trinity of damage. It is Thunder, it's just there's no S at the end. So let's look at the Thunderquake, the Spears 105 for this lesson. So the first part of it is rank 5 plus Spear Skill Force plus 60%. Skill Force is the foundation of damage in this game. If you don't have Skill Force, you're gonna have a hard time. So the main thing starting off is to find Magatamas that give you Skill Force. The first part of this stat here, it says rank 5 plus. Every skill on your weapon has ranks to it. So if we look at my skills are all rank 7, and then the Oogis are rank 6, or Sublime in this case. Generally for your normal skills, which will occupy the first 3 slots on your weapon, the bottom 2 are Oogis. What you'd want to do is, generally you're going to use skills that are rank 5 plus. Anything under rank 5 is incredibly weak and are not used, because most Magatamas that are good are going to buff your skills that are rank 5 and higher. So everything's in Roman numerals, so V is 5, VI is 6, and VII is 7 for those not Roman literate. So generally, as you progress through the game and as you play and as you roll gacha tickets, you're going to come across skill card sets, and skill card sets are going to have specific skills on them that will just come at rank 6 or 7, really, really high stuff. So you want to just be using rank 5s and higher, which come from skill cards. So your skill force is going to buff the damage you deal on those skills by a set amount. So this one here says rank 5 plus spear skill force, so only spear moves plus 60%. So that's going to take your whatever move you're using skill force and amplify that number by 60% before it takes in your attack and you hit the enemy. That's skill force. The more skill force you have, the more damage you do. So take a quick second back here. We're going to look at Thundercrack. Thundercrack 7 has 2061 skill force. And that's the move skill force. Thundercrack hits 3 times. So every single hit is going to have the individual skill force of 1/3 of that 2000. So it's going to be like close to 600, yeah, close to about 650 skill force per hit. And then for every mag you have, that's going to be additional skill force total, is going to amplify that 650, that each hit by a set skill force amount. So you need skill force to amplify your damage. So the next thing in the Trinity of damage is element, I believe, yes. So it says right there, lightning plus 10. So lightning element is just an element. All the 105 mags are going to have a little bit of element on them, a positive and a negative. So the more element you have, element is going to buff moves of that element. So what we talked about earlier, the example Thundercrack is going to have an additional 10 lightning. So since it's a lightning pierce move, it's going to take, if we have 30 lightning, since we're wearing 3 Thunderquakes, the game's going to be like, oh, you have 30 lightning, so we're going to add the lightning to your skill force and use that. It's going to add that element to the skill force total. It's not calculated for you, but it does it imaginarily. Like, it doesn't show you, but it's going to happen. So if we have 261, then it's going to add the 30 lightning, and that's going to be multiplied in with your damage, and then the skill force is going to multiply that new skill force number and just do more damage. So the more element you have, and if you use skills of that element, they're going to do more damage, and the skill force is then going to buff that damage, and it's going to be great. Hey Dave, how you doing? So next thing on the list, so basically use element. Mags are going to have elements, and if you use skills of that element, they're just going to be better. Generally. Next thing on here is crit force. So it's the last line there. It says critical force plus 10. We touched on crit force last time, and what that was is if ever you deal an attack, if that attack lands a critical hit, it's going to get multiplied. So with 3 105s, you're going to have 200 crit force, critical force. So that means your attack is going to deal double the damage on a critical hit. That means if you enhance your crit force higher and higher and higher, it's going to do, like if you had 210, it's going to do 2.1 times, or 250, it's going to do 2.5 times, or 300, it's going to do a whopping 3 times damage on critical. Hi Hakai, I do play on PS4. So, as you can see here with my weapon and the Magatamas I'm wearing, my thunder element is 70 because my weapon is a thunder weapon, and my mags give me 30, so 40, 30, 70 lightning. The Magatamas are also negative mountain, so I have 45 negative mountain. The weapon is negative dark, so I have negative dark element, and I have 60 holy because it's a holy weapon, so the holy moves are going to do more damage as well. And these elements are always going to be calculated based on what weapon you're equipped with. So if I click on the Supreme here, and then close this little tab, it's now going to show us new totals of 50 fire, 30 lightning from the mags, 50 dark from the weapon, negative rain from the weapon, negative mountain just from the mags, 20 wind from my accessories, and negative 45 holy from the weapon itself. And then it's going to have 50 pierce on it, or even more pierce, a lot of pierce, a total of 75 pierce, and negative 45 impact because of the weapon. So basically every weapon has elements on it, and you want to use skills of that element on that weapon to basically get the most out of your skills on your weapon. So there's going to be weapons for fire, weapons for lightning, weapons for water, weapons for wind, etc., etc. There's a weapon for everything except for poison and flight, but everything else has a weapon in correspondence. with its skills. What weapons do the high amount of damage? Generally, the weapons that are going to do the highest amount of damage are the highest level weapons in the game. So basically, once you understand that skill force is going to buff your skills on your weapons, you want to stack as much skill force as you can. You want to stack as much element as you can, but element's situational because some enemies are going to resist certain elements and some enemies are going to be weak to those elements, so you want to plan accordingly. And then your crit and crit force are pretty much universal in their damage, bar a few enemies. But the strongest weapons are the higher level weapons, so the weapons with more attack, which is the number we see here. On the El Omen of Doom, we have 21,858. On the Supreme, we have 24,427, and the other side is 24,512. And then the staff's attack isn't that important, but it's still, it is what it is. So generally, the higher level weapons are going to have higher attack as you smelt them up. And basically, if you have high attack, high skill force, high element, and high critical and crit force, you're going to do the most damage possible. The other stat we haven't talked about yet, which is one of the most important stats, is just critical in general. Right now on this build, I only have about 36 crit. It's not a lot, but what that means is I have a 36% chance to land a critical hit with my weapons and my skills. So 36 isn't the best, but it is somewhat manageable if you're playing a class that does multi-hit moves. Because in this game, if you do a multi-hit move, it doesn't calculate crit once and then do all the damage or do all the calculations. In this game, it's going to calculate your critical hit chance based on every tick of your skill. So if you use a move that hits the enemy 8 times and each hit produces damage, then every move is going to have a little roll for crit. So it's going to check this 36% chance, and every time it is a crit, it's going to do the critical damage, and every time it's not, then it's just going to do regular damage. So that's your critical hit rate. So generally, the higher your crit rate, the higher you land crits, which basically means if you're always critting, you're always dealing double damage, which means you're using half as much durability and half as much time and half as much cooldown when you battle, as opposed to someone who does not invest in crit. Critical gets invested through your Magatama ornamentations, which we'll have to talk about at a separate time, but this is basically on our Magatamas here. We can see there are 2 clear slots. That means that's an ornamentation slot, which means you can later on, once you've leveled up your Kaguya, you can put some ornamentations on your mags, and they are randomly generated once you put them on. There's a chance you might get nothing, there's a chance you could get awesome stuff. It's all randomized, it's very annoying, but that's just how the game works. And for the most part, on your good mags, you're going to want to use the ornamentation Fated Contractor. It's a very safe and staple ornamentation that's widely used among the meta and the players. And what that does is it has a chance of boosting your slice element, your overall HP, your overall SP pool, and your critical. You can get anywhere from 5 to 8 critical from the ornamentation. And if you start to add that up, if you got, let's say, 7 crit 6 times, like, give yourself a pat on the back, you're doing a great job. And that's, let's say, 7 times 6, that's 42? 7 times 6, 42? I mean, I feel like it is, but I'm probably wrong. But, you know, that's about 40 extra crit. And base crit in the game, depending on how you build, is close to 20 anyway. So you'd be rocking about 70 critical. Close to 60, 70 critical. And some accessories do have critical on them as well. And that will just bump you up to absurdly high numbers. And like we see in the comments here, in general, my rule of thumb is aim for 50 crit. Because once you're at 50 crit, that brings your chance to crit at a 50-50. That means every time you hit, you have a 50% chance, a coin flip, that your attack's going to crit. So generally there's, like, think of it like quarters. Like, there's a bunch of different thresholds for critical. If you have under 20, if you have 25 or under critical, you're going to have a 1 to 5 or a 1 out of 5 or a 1 out of 4 chance to critical, which means you can't really rely on it, and it's just going to happen when it happens. If you have a 50%, that means it's going to crit. It's just yes or no, which is generally where I like to have it. If you have 75, it's great. It's perfect in my opinion. Like, you don't need more than 75, and less than 75 isn't that bad. You're beyond the 2/3 mark. You're at that 3/4 mark. So generally expect to crit every 3 out of 4 times. I can't word probability any differently. So, and then an 100 crit is like a pipe dream, but at that point you could be investing in other stats like element and extra skill force just to deal as most damage as possible. 100 crit is nice on paper, but in practice it's not going to do you as well as a huge element invested build that incorporates every little part of this puzzle. So having the critical, the crit force, the elements, and the skill force, if you have all those things, you're doing as much damage as you can, and at that point the only way to really improve yourself is by getting accessories and just getting to the next tier of weapons, the next level weapons, the next event, so on and so forth. So I know that wasn't as concise as I wanted it to be, but if you've been following along, the general gist of how to be good is to have high level weapons and have Magatamas that are the 105s or the Fuse, the 117s, which you'll get later. And just make sure your character has decent critical, good crit force, good element for the skills you're using and the enemies you're fighting. And that's pretty much it. You have attack, critical, crit force, and element. If you can combine all those and balance them out and just work with it and build around those parameters, you're going to be doing fine. And these mags, the 105s, they have a taste of everything. And once you combine all those components, you're going to be doing massive damage. Like really good damage for your level, where you should be. Is 220 good? Yeah, 220 is good. 220 is what you generally see from 2 Fuse and a 105 and then another mag. That's great because you're doing 2.2 times damage every time you crit. So, and remember, if you don't have good critical, you can't invest in crit force. It's just, you can't do it. It's like having a really good gun but not having ammo. You need that ammo to use that gun, let's just say. They complement each other. You can have a lot of crit but not that much crit force. It's fine. But you can't have a lot of crit force and not have crit. It's just not going to work for you. So hopefully that will help guide you guys towards what to build for as you start getting into Onigiri and you start, wanting to do better. Because that's the biggest thing that's going to happen in my experience. You're going to play through the game, story's going to be somewhat easy, you're going to get through it, and then eventually you're going to hit a wall. And you're just going to be like, damn, why can't I win? And then you're going to look at your build and you're going to be like, oh man, I got like 25 skill force. Oro said I need to get that up. So let me research some Magatamas that I can go farm or buy off another player and use those instead. Because that is an option. The game does have bazaars, so we can trade this time around. These guides are going to be also, pointing in the direction of, we need, if you have money to spare, players are selling stuff all the time, and you can get these 105s. Honestly, getting 105s, like I said before, is part of the grind, but if you're killing yourself over 2-3 weeks of farming, if not more, or months, and you've had enough, ask the community and say, hey, does anyone have the 105 mag for Axe? I really need it. I can't get this recipe. And then someone be like, oh yeah, I have a couple of those. Would you like one? And you can work out a deal with them. That's a thing. Or people just sell stuff. I won't sell you my spear, no. But, that's generally the gist of damage. And hopefully that helps you guys out. And, yeah, more up-to-date guides on the works. The future guides are going to be more class specific, so be on the lookout for those. So if you're hankering towards wand or sword or spear or a specific weapon type, there's going to be a more focused guide for everybody. So thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned, stay subscribed for the next videos. Leave a like if it helped, you know. Leave some feedback if you want me to change anything, you know. And I'm always happy to listen. So hope you guys enjoy this and have a great day. Happy farming.